What's up everybody, it's me, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the new Valorant tier list. A ton of freaking changes just went through, and it changed everything. So I compiled this tier list with top tier 2 and tier 3 players, and also combining the average rank and the average player experience into this with my own opinions, all combined to make the perfect tier list just for you. So we're gonna break it all down, but if you want to improve and you've been stuck, struggling to try and get to that new all-time peak, the Game Leap website has everything you need, including in-depth VODs, breaking down step-by-step exactly what you need to be doing in order to win. So if you want to climb, what are you waiting for? Go check it out right now in the description down below. Now, this is one of the biggest patches we've seen in quite some time, and it had huge changes to some of the most meta characters, so the ramifications can just basically be felt everywhere. But let's start off with the bottom of the barrel, the C tier, and currently we have Harbor in that C tier. Now, I know that Harbor is getting some specific buffs, but honestly, it's not gonna be enough to propel Harbor into a solo controller status. Unfortunately, due to the nature of his kit, he's a character that really fits mainly in a dual controller setup, but it's still unclear at this point whether or not that is even preferred, even though some teams here and there are testing it. Harbor's not a controller that fills the controller slot in ranked, oftentimes will not be enough to be a solo controller, and good luck getting 2 controllers in your ranked games. And then even for that scrim play, he just is underwhelming, to say the least. He's gonna need some serious buffs if he wants to compete with the likes of Viper. So for now, he's in the C tier, unfortunately for you Harbor players. Next up, we have Reyna, and I always give a caveat to Reyna because while she is technically C tier for a meta or pro tier list, not only will you run into a lot of Reynas, whether they're Smurfs or just people that want to lock Reyna, but Reyna's a character where if you're the best player in the lobby, you can hard carry like no one else. And Reyna is going to be also a character that you run into a lot in ranked. So I'd say for the vast majority of ranks, Reyna is like an A or S tier agent, even though for like big picture meta stuff, Reyna just leaves a lot lacking in the ability or utility department. Then next up, we gotta talk about the B tier. And the B tier is stacked to the brim. A lot of these characters are either situational or they require very specific setups or high levels of mastery outside of the norm in order to see substantial play. First off, let's talk about Neon. And Neon's a character that if you become cracked at and learn all the advanced movement techs, how to properly time your aggression with your team, you can be a complete menace in ranked and dominate and even be like close to an A tier, maybe even teetering into even higher than that. But the reality is a lot of Neons are not gonna get a crazy amount of value because unfortunately you do want a certain amount of setups. You want flash setups, an initiator to basically help you set up a one-sided engagement, and all in all, there are some duelists that I think bring more ground floor level or base level value to the table. Doesn't mean Neon is a bad pick. I just think that if you want to play her, you probably want to become more of a specialist at her if you want to have that ranked dominance that you're looking for. Now, of course, next up, we got to talk about Brimstone, and Brimstone is really only down here just because he is outshined by Omen. Omen takes up the vast majority of the pick rate, and in most cases for controller mains, Omen's gonna be better. But the thing about Brim that's really great is one, he's better on a map like Fracture where you have multiple smokes that you need to throw up at the same time, and having those 3 smokes is a really great thing. And 2, I think Brim is better to fill to on the controller role than Omen is by far. If you're someone that doesn't play controllers, but you're thrown onto the role, Brim is gonna give you a much higher baseline of value. And I think that that is something that you should give props to Brim for and should bump him up the tier list for the average player, even if he hasn't played nearly as much as Omen in scrims or high rank / pro play. The next up, we actually gotta talk about Phoenix. And Phoenix is a character that does actually have a very high win rate in ranked play. And if this was a purely ranked tier list, he would be in the A tier towards the top. But because of his really low scrim and pro play and meta pick rate, I'm putting him kind of in the B tier because he kind of splits the difference. Now, Phoenix is also getting some interesting buffs, and I think all in all, this is gonna help Phoenix just be a little bit more efficient in ranked play, but he was already pretty good in ranked to begin with, so it's not gonna change him fundamentally or anything like that. I do think that Phoenix is a great character to play and climb with, And this is the character that I really play the most, and I would consider him my main as well, mainly because I like to shoot at people when they're blind, much more than I like to take 50-50 gunfights, but hey, that's just me. Next up, we gotta talk about Sage, and I don't really like what they've done to Sage. They've nerfed her quite a bit and made it so you are much more of a healer than you are a flexible Sentinel that gets your own decisions and your own identity, because really, you're gonna wanna heal your teammates more than yourself, like 99% of the time. While Sage is still going to be good, especially with Split being added back in and maps like Breeze where Sage is bad at being removed, I don't like the direction. Now, that's not going to make me bring her down the list or anything like that. Sage has a high win rate, a high pick rate, and I think she's still going to be really good in ranked. Rather unfortunate the direction that they're bringing with her, but it's not going to really destroy her power level unless you're someone that is just dead set on healing yourself for just a tiny little bit of health every single time. But yeah, all in all, Sage is still middle of the pack, towards the upper end of B tier. Now, next up, we got to talk about Astra, and Astra definitely doesn't get enough props. I would say that Astra is completely meta on Pearl and still good on a number of different maps as a replacement to either Omen or Brimstone. Astra does do a lot better if you have a duo, someone that's going to work with you to play around your smokes, but Astra is just full of a lot of playmaking potential and a high power level when you learn to master Astra. And I think that people that really focus on getting good with Astra will find value in places in ranked that you might not see that traditionally in pro play, but that doesn't matter because Astra has the power to pull off some really sick stuff if you learn to master her or go even beyond that. Next up, we gotta talk about Breach, a character that is receiving some slight nerfs to his ultimate, making it 1 cost more. I think Breach is really strong on several maps like Fracture, like Haven, and he's also pretty good on Split, which is coming back as well. Breach is still a great character and really, really good when you have an aggressive either Jet or Raze or Neon that you can set up. Breach can get a ton of value in that way, although as a solo carry character, if you're just solo queuing, he might be pretty hard to set up, and it's unfortunate that it's pretty hard for you to follow up your own initiating value. So yeah, I would suggest duo queuing with Breach, and then he's probably closer to that A tier or even higher. Next off in the B tier, we gotta talk about Chamber, and I actually talked to a lot of people that are currently scrimming and playing at a high level, and the general consensus is that Chamber is still good and still powerful, but he is a lot easier to counter, and he's not just completely oppressive anymore. Getting a free operator, being able to take a fight and teleport away, those things are still insanely strong, but the fact of the matter is Chamber can't lurk nearly as much. He can't be aggressive with his operator anymore, and it's really, really important to understand that Chamber is playing much more like a Sentinel than he ever has before. And that's a good thing overall for the health of the game, but Chamber is by no means completely dead, and he is still a Sentinel that is playable and viable and strong in the right hands, but he's not gonna be a Sentinel that is going to be so strong at that role that it like overlaps with other roles, takes the spot of duelists, and just becomes an oppressive threat. It's very, very punishing for a Chamber to miss an op shot now with his ultimate. And especially with maps like Breeze being removed, I think that Chamber is going to be a character that is going to decrease quite a bit in pick rate, but not unplayable by any means. And if you really want to play Chamber, no one's gonna stop you because I think Chamber can still get a ton of value. Last up in the B tier, we have Skye, and Skye's a character that is strong. The only reason that she's this low is because there's other initiators that kind of take her spot and do what she does a bit better. Unfortunately for Skye, the duelist hybrid version of Skye, where she could pop flash for herself and take duels, is more or less gone. I mean, she could still do it to an extent, but it's not nearly as strong as it used to be. But Skye can still set up her teams and enable her teams for some pretty serious plays, plus gather information, and I do think that Skye is still a pretty strong pick and someone that is worth specializing in if you really want to get really, really great at her. Overall, I think that she makes it to the top of B tier, not quite dipping into A, but still very powerful. Don't sleep on Skye. Next up, we gotta talk about the A tier. These are characters that are gonna have a huge impact or gained huge potential going into this next patch. But of course, where they could truly end up is gonna vary, and whether or not these characters are gonna be viable in meta play is up in the air, but for ranked play, they're gonna be strong. And at the bottom of the A tier is Cypher. Now, Cypher receives some pretty serious buffs, in addition to characters like Chamber and Sage getting nerfed, so Cypher becomes a lot more appealing. And I think that ultimately Cypher is just a really powerful character on several freaking maps. Great on Split, which is coming back. On top of that, he's honestly really strong on maps like Fracture as well. And Cypher's a character that has been hurt a lot more from perception than anything else. Like, the perception of Cypher for the longest time is that he's unplayable garbage, but the reality is for the majority of ranks, Cypher could get a ton of value when played because players aren't disciplined to play around Cypher's utility. And now that the perception has changed, Cypher's just gonna see an increase in pick rate and is gonna get played like how he should have been played before. So I think that that really cascades down the line, and ultimately Cypher's gonna be a really great character going forward. And if you're a Cypher main, look no further than locking him this act. Next up, we have Yoru. And Yoru's a character that you're gonna see a lot of tier lists rank pretty low. But the thing that you need to understand about Yoru is that he has a huge potential skill ceiling, and we already know that at the highest ranks of play, Yoru has an insane win rate when mastered. This means that he's a character that is fully worth grinding. If you're not someone that wants to go pro or chase the path to pro, understand that becoming cracked enough at Yoru can basically carry you all the way to Radiant and beyond. And Yoru's a character that has an extremely high win rate when you do master all of his advanced techs. So what I would say is that Yoru is actually phenomenal to learn and rewards you with rank for mastering the character, plus has so many abilities that can help you get onto site, whether that's flashing, teleporting, taking an angle and teleporting away. Ultimately, Yoru is super slept on, and yeah, I think Yoru deserves the A tier. Next up, we have two characters in the A tier, both Fade and Sova. Both of these characters are strong, and dependent on the map, they're gonna eat up each other's pick rate. There's some maps like Split, I think is gonna be most likely a Fade preferred map. Sova didn't even see that much play on Split before. And in addition to that, maps that slightly favored Sova like Breeze are being removed. But ultimately, Bind was still a good Sova map as well. It was a little split on that one. But all in all, while Fade is getting some nerfs to the Prowler, it's not going to hugely affect how good Fade is. Fade is still going to be great, and the Prowler's effect is still strong even if it can be removed because of the information that you get. I think that if you learn both these characters, you can mix and match them, but honestly in ranked, you could just play one on pretty much every map you run into. Both these characters are so strong that I think they deserve the A tier, and on top of that, you could play them both on the same squad, no big deal, and still get a ton of value anyways. So yeah, both of these characters are rocketing that A tier. Next up, towards the top of the A tier, we have Killjoy. Killjoy got quite a few buffs, actually. The thing about Killjoy is not only is a character like Chamber nerfed, which is a buff in itself, but with increase of the health of Killjoy's ultimate, Shock Dart lineups, 2 Shock Darts will not destroy the ultimate, and it's going to be a little bit harder to destroy that ultimate as well, so that's an added benefit to Killjoy's ultimate. And in addition to those Chamber nerfs and just the positioning in the new meta, Killjoy is set to benefit quite a bit, and I think that she is going to be a huge staple of the meta going forward, and has already been very strong in ranked. So if we pack it all together, Killjoy's at the top of that A tier. Now the last character in the A tier and at the top of the list, maybe dipping into S tier, but we're keeping them at the top of the A tier for now, and it's Jett. Jett is most likely going to come back in a huge way, capable of taking op angles and dashing away, capable of being aggressive. We already saw Jett see substantial play, but that play is probably going to increase with the void left by Chamber's 70% pick rate, and we're going to see a lot more duelists see the limelight because now you're not going to have like these double initiator freaking compositions that are just trying to flush out a Chamber op angle with no duelists in the comp. We're not going to see that nearly as much anymore, and duelists might go back to a 2 duelist setup, so Jett's going to see a lot more play because there's really not a crazy amount of valuable duelists in the same way in the pro meta as we do some other roles. So yeah, Jett's gonna come back, gonna see more pick rate, gonna be fantastic, great in ranked, great pretty much everywhere if you learn to master her. And yeah, what's there more to say about her? She's just gonna be awesome. Now moving on to this S tier, we have several characters that just bring so much consistent value, very strong, very picked, will likely define the new meta going forward. At the bottom of the barrel, we have KO. KO is a character that just is insane. Very strong in pro play, very strong in solo carry play, and I do think that KO is super slept on, but every single one of his abilities are amazing. And I would say that KO is probably one of the most powerful characters to solo carry with, and he can create so much opportunity for you and your team. Strong, super strong team strategies with your ultimate and rushing. Super strong individual strategies trying to set yourself up with flashes or flash through a smoke and push in with your team. KO's insane. KO's great, and I would highly suggest KO as our first S tier agent. Next up, we have Omen as one of the best controllers in the game right now. Omen is just super strong, gets slight buffs right now to his paranoia, and also Omen is just a character that can carry ranked games. I think he is one of the best solo carry controllers right now. Great on a number of different maps. Like, you can even play him on Pearl, you could play him on Split, you could play him on Haven, you could play him everywhere. I mean, Omen is just great. And with maps like Breeze being removed, which is one of the maps that Viper's preferred, I do think that Omen gets to have more maps overall that he's played on, even though the next one on our list is still Viper. Viper's still phenomenal right now, still great, and I think that if we do see double controller metas, we'll see it with Viper and Omen. But Viper, even though she's getting substantial nerfs, is still just really great at doing a lot of things. I think that because she has a really strong ultimate, even if it's a lot weaker than it was before, it's still really strong. And at this point in time, we don't really know what the new map's gonna look like. It could very easily be a Viper map or not a Viper map, and it's kind of hard to know exactly what it will be, but depending on what it is, it could greatly change the meta, because you have to understand that there are certain maps that Viper alone can be played on. That's just the nature of the character, and especially with Harbor in this state right now, if a map comes out that is a Viper preferred map, then it's just Viper. It's only Viper. And we still have maps like Icebox that are really Viper preferred right now. So because of that, Viper is like a 100% must pick on some maps, and then on other maps, she's like a flexible pick. She deserves the S tier 100%. Last up in the S tier, maybe not at the top of the S tier, but still deserving of the place, is Raze. I think because of the void left by characters like Chamber leaving, and the lack of needing two initiators anymore, Raze is just gonna see a huge increase in pick rate. Raze is already very strong, has unique utility, a powerful ultimate, powerful abilities, and while yes, I understand that Raze is getting some nerfs to the boombot, making it a lot easier to shoot, Raze still just brings way too much value to the table to sleep on, and with Jett, Raze and Jett are both seeing huge increases, but I'm giving Raze a little bit more than Jett, even though in pro meta, Jett will probably see more play. I think that Raze is actually the better pick for a random ranked environment with all your advanced movement attacks and the guaranteed value with your ultimate. Yeah, I'm gonna put Raze in the S tier, but you could probably swap these out and interchange them. But let me know down below which part of this tier list you agree or disagree with. Is there anything that you would move around? Let me know why down below. Who are you gonna main going into this new patch, this new act? And yeah, thank you so much for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.